This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about the Anthropocene and Capitalocene. It's not either or. We live both in the age of the Anthropocene, but we also live in the age of the Capitalocene. It doesn't make sense that people discuss it in terms that everything that is being done on all the destruction that is being done in the planet Earth by humanity is just of Anthropocene causes, which means that we are the only responsible because we are not developed enough. It seems like William Rees, a Canadian, I believe, he is right about many things, but he defends that human beings are not developed enough in cognitive terms, to behave in another way. Which means my interpretation of his words is that it tries to make a point by assuming that human beings do not behave in another way because of their cognitive inability, because they are not evolved enough. At least is what I I believe is trying to say. Very beautiful blue butterfly. Of course, there are elements of the human condition that make possible that we can say that we live in the age of Anthropocene, that the Earth is dominated by mankind or humankind. That is true, but we need to understand how did we arrive here? What are the real roots of that? And that's where Capitalocene comes as a provocative term. It's like the same, it's like the concept of degrowth. Degrowth is also a word to provoke people. I was trying to find a more accurate word, but that's no problem. That's not. To shock people. Anyways, the Anthropocene is of course its origins are, if we were not be able to build these systems, we cannot understand, but we have been able, to build civilization, culture, and then we have art, technology, a huge leap in science knowledge, in scientific knowledge, and everything else. But nonetheless, these same people are not able to understand what we are doing, or who are not able to to understand the solutions. It's not about that. It is about that when human beings build a reality, they can intellectually understand that reality, understand the problems that have been created, but if their livelihoods still depend on the old system, their survival, their well-being, the well-being of their families, still depend on the old system, it's very difficult to change both our minds, not because we are not able to understand, not because we are not that we are not evolved enough. That is a BS excuse. That is really is not correct. It's just because we are captured by the system where we need to survive. It's not about intellectual understanding, it is about survival. And it is very difficult for us to to change, because we also fear the unknown. We fear change. We want change, but we fear change. Okay? Because we don't want to lose what we have. Even people that have very little, they are afraid of losing it, which is understandable. I'm not criticizing people because of that. And especially because we built a system that's not based on mutual trust, that was made on confidence, that we have confidence on each other, that we have relations, all kinds of relations, working relations, we are supposed to be individuals or corporations, companies competing in the market for our place there. And we are supposed to do our best to accumulate as much wealth as possible. Because that's the normality, that's the normal behavior, that is what we believe is success. Therefore, it's very difficult for us to play. This is the rules of the game. And we are not allowed, we can be spectators, but by being spectators we don't gain any. That's the point. The game is rigged, but not by us. We are spectators, and we are also, because we cooperate, we support the game, but the game is rigged against us. So the Anthropocene is not a myth, but it is people who try to blame the human species by what is, and also, and then they usually they talk about the problem of the overpopulation. You can find podcasts about that. They emphasize the problem of overpopulation instead of emphasizing the problem of a system that requires growth and requires that people, instigates people to buy what they don't need with the money they don't have to impress people they don't even like. This is absolutely ridiculous. We cannot blame humankind because otherwise we do not understand the roots of the problem. Because if we say, no, this is our fault as human species, we we behave like that, we cannot, that's blah blah blah. No, that's not true. That is not true. We need to understand the systemic and structural causes that are behind, and those structural and systemic causes is what gave rise to the Capitalocene, which is exactly where we live now. We live, of course, under the earth systems are under the pressure of a huge human population. That's nobody denies it, and it's too much consumption and too much extraction of resources, and there is a problem, which is a problem of the so-called energy transition, green energy transition, that requires huge amounts of resources, minerals like copper, for example, and other resources, and also oil. There is still need a lot of oil for the transition, oil and gas, natural gas. So the point is the Capitalocene. That's what is driving Anthropocene, not the other way around. Okay, that's because on the top, that because our lives are driven, are controlled by Capitalocene, because everything on this earth is being commodified and used as capital to build wealth. It is not, if you have even the financialization of nature, what they call the financialization of the ecosystem services, that everything, the genome, they want to privatize everything, they want to commodify everything. Because we live for a long time, but now it has exponentially during the last 70 years, the Capitalocene went through exponential growth. That's why we have at least 1 quadrillion of derivatives. I mean, I think it's more than that, but let's 1 quadrillion. 1 quadrillion is 1 plus 15 zeros. This is not wealth. This is just the transforming everything into capital. That's why it is Capitalocene, and that's why we need to understand, we need to read the Anthropocene through the lens of the Capitalocene in order to understand where the roots of the problems lie. Since at least the age of discoveries, since the rise of the mercantile, the globalization of the mercantile capitalism. This should be obvious for everybody, but people prefer to blame the human species. There is only one thing to blame about it's our condition, our ability to adapt almost to any condition and any kind of system and any type of culture, because if we are able to imagine and to create these realities, these fictional realities and these narratives to explain our role on a society and in nature, of course we will do our best to adapt to that reality. And we are conditioned by that reality, not because we are cognitively not evolved enough, but because that is in order. You know, if we buy into a family or a country where the dominant religion, where we are taught that God is this and that, and creation is this and that, and the rules of life is this and that, and everything else, you are going to be colonized, instrumentalized, indoctrinated into a vision of the world and of yourself through narratives that will become subconscious, that they will become psycho-cognitive, affective, dominant narratives that makes how you perceive you from the depths of your subconscious. And only when later you will be exposed to other realities, or you see the contradictions of that system, that there is one there are the world of values and then the reality, the social and economic reality and political reality, and then you start to see, okay, this is something wrong with that. And you can feel, because it doesn't matter. We can how indoctrinated we are. We can understand inequality. We can understand exploitation. We can understand things that are blatantly wrong. So, and we can feel it in ourselves, in our experience, because we can be in one side of or the other. So this is so only when the dominant narrative changes and is replaced by another, you start to have a new identity. That you start to understand yourself and the world around you in a different form, through a different lenses. I don't see this as a lack of evolution. I just see this as our condition. That's how we function as a species, as a social species, and cultural species. That's how we function. So we cannot. The principle, or what I'm trying to say, that is useless. And it's not only useless; it's very dangerous. That we buy into the idea that the human species is bad, the human species is responsible for everything that's wrong in this world, and we can't, because it's true to a certain extent, okay? Because it is us, human beings, that are doing it. But it's not every human being, it's not every single human being that is doing it, and the ones that are more responsible need to be accountable, and the system we have needs to be questioned, and we need to find the solutions. Not just saying that, not just by blaming human species and thinking about solutions like depopulate, but by becoming a neo-Malthusian and eventually trying to find solutions in to just to kill people, in the name of saving the planet. I mean, I agree that we need to do something about the population. By the way, the population is growing in some places of the world, but is already decreasing in other places. Of course, it's growing faster, but since the population in so many parts, especially in countries, in developed countries and rich countries, the population is aging, because wherever the society, the capitalist society develops, achieves a certain level of development, people start to think more about education, more about they start to have children later in life. They want to provide a good education to the children. They think they change the mindset in relation to to give birth, because women start to think about their careers. They want to they put their careers, then they put the going to university and to implement their skills above motherhood. It's not about it's right or wrong. It's not that, it's the reality. This is the reality. And this happens everywhere in most developed countries. So the population is a problem. I do agree that we should not continue to grow in numbers, because we don't want people to be poor, we want people to have decent lives, and we want to have economic development where it's needed, and we should stop growing where it's not needed. And that's the point where Capitalocene is. That's the problem. If you have a system that is the dominant system everywhere you go in the world, is the dominant system everywhere, okay? It's a global system. Doesn't matter unipolarity or multipolarity, is the global system. We have Capitalocene is what rules the world, is exactly what is behind everything else. And if this economic system and political system and ideological system that really controls and colonizes our minds of the majority of the human population, even most of the poor people, that they aspire, if not to become rich, at least they crave money. We all crave money, That's a capitalist drive, That's so we are already infected, because that's that need, that basic need. So we do not understand this. If you don't understand that the age of Capitalocene is what is that we really live in the age of the Capitalocene. And no, we cannot, the economic system, I have to repeat it again, and because this system is based on a few things very at their core. First, debt. Capitalism is based on debt. New money needs to be created out of thin air with a few strokes in a computer, in a keyboard, in order to become, in order to enter the economy. So the growth of the economy is the growth of money, is the growth of new money that is pumped into the economy, which needs to be paid back with interest. So the economy needs to grow because the economy needs to pay the debt plus the interest, and also compound the interest if it's a long-term debt. So this is one of the principles. Second principle is the unlimited accumulation of wealth, which no ceiling, it is just companies and corporations are supposed to do their best to grow and to make more profits. That's what they are supposed to do. If they and becoming monopolies, and usually they end up by seeking rents. They end up becoming, if they don't start like that, they end up becoming rent seekers, which, by the way, is what the banking and financial system is in a capitalist system. They're not producing anything. Money should be a public asset, public good, not for profit. This is incredible because we should really understand it. It should be really easy to understand that money should be a public good. That's it. And I mean public. I mean not governmental, no, but public. Controlled by the state that needs to be controlled by the demos. This is the second point. Another point is the primacy of private property. Why do we believe that private property is the most important thing? We all want to own private property. We want to own land, houses, flats, cars, planes, yachts. You name it. Not all of us want everything, but we all feel the need to, because we have the belief that the only way to be really safe is through owning, is through becoming an owner, a capitalist, owning asset, owning capital. Usually in the form of a private house, a family house, or a piece of land, farming land, or a car eventually, of course. That's one important. That's important to have a house, a car. Because we believe that is important, that the more wealth we accumulate, the better for us and the better for the posterity which means that inheritance is another principle that we all believe because we want to keep the wealth in the family. We want to leave more than we got. You know, this is capitalism. And many people just take it as natural because they have been raised like that. Because that's everywhere they look, it works like that. And most people know that, and every country probably has sayings that they know that wealth, really wealth, you don't get there by working hard. That's not how you become really wealthy, you know. People know it. Does it mean that it's not important to work hard and to be obsessed with something, with the objective, the goal, to be ambitious in order to become wealthy? Of course it is. But it also needed, everybody needs a little bit of luck. Also, the point is, we all live in the Capitalocene, which means that our mindset, our deep beliefs, the narratives, the dominant narratives that control how we perceive the world, that shape how we perceive the world, if you don't want to use the word control, that shape how we perceive the world, how we perceive nature, how we understand relations, how everything is under the umbrella of the Capitalocene age, because that is this umbrella, this ideological, cultural, economic, social, political umbrella that really shapes our perception. And for the ones that understand this, how wrong this is, they still need to live according to the rules and laws of this system, because that's the system where they need to survive, where they live, where they need to pay the bills. You know, how can we, each of us, fight against BlackRock to taking over almost 400,000 houses? They are the biggest landlord in America. How can you avoid, because there is no social housing, there are no programs to, no state and governmental programs to build houses for the poor and the people that have the lower classes, and then people do not have enough money to pay high rents that there are so high due to speculation, do real estate speculation, to rent seeking by the fire sector, finance, insurance and real estate. These people are not creating wealth, they are extracting wealth from the real economy, they are impoverishing people, they are the ones that use manufacture scarcity in order to enrich themselves and condemn millions of people to destitution and to live in permanent uncertainty. This is Capitalocene. This is the age of Capitalocene, and this is, to me, it's so clear that is almost unbearable. I mean, it is so frustrating that not that we buy into that so many people, smart people, buy into the Anthropocene and talk about overpopulation and talk about the need of this and the need of that. But they don't want to talk about the roots of the problem. You know, what really shapes how we perceive the world, what makes us adapt to a reality in order to survive. Because we are conditioned. We are conditioned in every possible way. Economic, political, cultural, ideological, you know. It's a very difficult. It's so and it's getting worse, of course. It's getting worse because we have the tech oligarchs that want to create a tech republic. I mean, it's not republic. They don't want a republic. That's what they do not want that. They even want, there are people that want about tech monarchy. Now they are tech oligarchs, they want techno-fascism or techno-feudalism. I mean techno-fascism with a techno-feudalist economy. Techno-fascism, political techno-fascism with a techno-feudalistic economy. That's what these people want. They want to control everything. And of course, they will impose on us. Transhumanism will be imposed on us. And the depopulation most probably also will be imposed on us. They are not going to Mars. Do you believe that that is just like that? That it's that easy to go to Mars and to colonize Mars? That is just delusion, hubristic delusion. Doesn't mean that they cannot go there at a huge cost. The money that should be used to fix, the resources. I need not talk about money, because money, we can have much money as we want. Money money controls the real world, but money itself is part of the virtual world. Money is not a thing. This is another important understanding. Money is not a thing. It doesn't matter if you call, I repeat it again and again because this is so important to understand. It doesn't matter if you use gold or whatever you use, whatever kind of tokens use as money. Money is a concept. Money is an abstract, is not part of the real world, is not a thing. So we can create money. It's like numbers, okay? Can you understand that numbers do not exist in the real life? That they are abstract symbols that we use to count things, but they do not really exist. They do not really exist in the real life. They are part of a system that is that is part of a symbolic system that we developed, we imagined and created and developed in order to count. That's the same that's the same. The laws of nature are not, I mean, the laws, the physical world is the world where we live, is the raw materials, is the living beings, is the geosphere, the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, is everything that composes the Earth system. It's not money, nor numbers, nor but not the stories. The stories that they are made, but from one story, one narrative, made by a group of people, a tribe or a community, that together they built that narrative to make sense, because we have that the imagination to do it is one thing, but when we start to live in systems, complex systems, so complex societal systems, that where the narratives are created by a few, a group, a specific group, in order to rule the rest, okay, in order to control the rest of us, that is when we have a problem, a huge problem. And that is the huge problem we have, that there are the ones creating not only the narratives, but the laws, the structures, the systems and subsystems, that only have one purpose and goal, is to serve themselves, is to allow themselves to control the rest of us. That is a problem. That is a problem, and this problem is rooted in the Capitalocene age, because it's who owns the capital controls everything. Doesn't matter what kind of capital. So this is very important to understand if we want to. Otherwise we will be, humanity, I see it, it's, I do not know, nobody knows, but to me looks like a bleak future. And because if we don't break this system apart, if we do not, if you are not able to have a systemic change, most probably there will be the elites, these tech oligarchs and other oligarchs, they will find a way to justify eugenic measures to eliminate the excessive population, because first they don't need us. We are redundant, so they do not need us as slaves and servants. They need some of us. So why should they keep cattle that needs to be fed, that needs resources, that consumes energy, and everything else, if they are not needed at all? They are not being cynic. I'm just trying to, because this is how these people see us, cattle, less than cattle. we are useless. Cattle, at least they have some use. Cattle has always some use to or maybe we are going to be used, sometimes I remember it, as Soylent Green, okay? Maybe we are going to be used as Soylent Green. Do you remember? I mean, maybe if you are if you are young, you don't remember the movie Soylent Green. But it was a story about, okay, it was just they were making Soylent Green was, as it was discovered, it was food made out of human flesh to feed other humans. So that's maybe where we are headed. And maybe also to feed dogs. You know, who knows? I mean, we all should have. I mean, I think about life because that's the only thing that matters. Of course, we need some basic needs satisfied, and some a bit of comfort, and I mean, there are certain things that are. I mean, I do not. It's not that important, you know. I'm recording this talk or whatever. I don't know what I mean. It's a talk, okay? In a device, because we do not have any more. You know, don't have people to talk or discuss. We have to talk to ourselves, kind of, and. You have to have a monologue. You have to write down instead of discussing and debating and being intellectually honest and trying to find solutions and this. No, we just are very atomized, and then this is kind of a replace for what humans should do, which. To join together, to unite, to think about the common good, because, you know, the common good is good for everyone. It's like peace. Peace is good for everyone. War, no. War is good only for a few. You know, it's like competition. Competition, a little bit of competition, it's like the salt and pepper in our food, okay? It's important. Too much competition kills cooperation. It just makes people think about themselves and about their project. They don't then care, and then we start only to see others through the lens, how can I use them? You don't care anymore, but to see others, how they can be useful, you know? How can I use this person? This person might be, I might want to know this person to keep this friendship or this connection, because it might be I might need it in the future for always economic or other or social connection or political connection or some other reason that has to do with a self-interest, not thinking about the other person as another human being with whom you want to have a connection. No, the connection is based on interest. And all of this is, if people want to believe this is okay, this is Anthropocene, this is because we are greedy, we are individualistic, we only think about ourselves, we have been always like that, you know. They even distort. I mean, I always thought it very interesting the way they painted and described and designed the ancient peoples and the savages, always with very, I mean, ugly faces, that they were supposed to be like that because the shape of their scalp and this and that and faces, that they were always painting them very ugly and ferocious, looking ferocious, as if they didn't have any humanity at all. And they always try to say that there are so many people trying to portray the indigenous peoples as because they were also committing ecocide, just like us. You know, you can imagine that. I mean, even imagine that there was a few or some or whatever tribes that they were having practices that we could call ecocidal practices, hunting practices or other practices. But that would not say that would have been the exceptions. And what I found, because I can see it in so many cases, where our culture, where our priests, you know, our high priests in academia, and they tell stories using the exception not to prove the rule, but to be the rule. They make us believe that, it's not only us, this is just really a problem of our species. We have always been like that. You know, there were foundings, they found evidence, you know, archaeological evidence that these people here and there, they found mass graves of these or mass, you know, they were driven elephants or they were driven mammoth or bisons over the cliff. They were killing hundreds just because there was it was how they did the hunting. I do not want to say that it is a total fabrication, but most probably if it was true, it was probably exceptions, not the rule. When the Europeans arrived to the American plains, there was plenty of bison, you know, there was plenty of salmon, you know, in the rivers, you know. So how can you believe that the people that were living there or somewhere else on earth, especially the indigenous people that were living really close to nature, not using money or not having any kind of commodification? In some parts there was already commodification, but I'm talking more about the people that they were living in oblivious to commodification. They were not living like that. Because when people Lives are not commodified, and the means to survive are not commodified, people do not want things they don't need. You know why? It doesn't make sense. If you live in a country where it's hot all the time, like so many countries where first there is food all year round available. Then you can hunt or fish every day. You can also dry. That's only that you can save some food by drying it. But you don't have other methods of conservation. Besides drying food, it is not easy because food rots pretty fast in warm, humid countries. So why should they? I mean, they want a shelter. They don't need shelter all over. When they want to have shelter, it's okay. And then when they need to move, they build another shelter, and they together be the shelter for you, then be the shelter for me, and be the shelter for another one. Because it doesn't make sense. Accumulation only makes sense when you use money, a token, when you use something that could be, it is interesting and facilitates our life, used as a means of exchange. But when it's used as a means of storage of value, of course it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem. It is a huge problem. And it is something that we need to discuss, because we won't be able to solve any problem unless we discuss these basic problems. What does it really mean, unlimited accumulation of wealth? What does it mean? What's the real purpose of private property? I mean, because if you want really to think about all the problems, it's always, we only say because someone is controlling this, but is controlling this or that. Why? What is the real reason why people become? It's always because they become wealthy enough to have political power. Because then wealth, after a certain threshold, wealth becomes political power. Okay, it's transformed into political power. It can be political power just very localized, or it can become political power to transform society. And that's what we are witnessing now with the tech oligarchs. They want to transform society. They want to use technocracy in order to build a tech monarchy. To me, it's not tech monarchy, it is tech fascism, techno-fascism. That's what they really want to build. And this is the essence of the Capitalocene age that we need to understand. And again, I emphasize it. If you try to understand the problems that we face, humanity faces, through the lens of the Anthropocene lens, and you just do not understand the role of the Capitalocene age, and then you miss it. You miss it. You are going to miss it. It's just what it is. It's not. And what we omit or what we miss in what is omitted, voluntary or intentionally or unintentionally, or what we miss, always when we frame a problem, or we frame to question a problem, or to question a system or a situation, can be more important than, because we miss the point. That is why to analyze complex systems is not easy, and to model them is not. It can be it is useful, but it should be carefully assessed, because just because there are people able to model complex systems in order to try to come up with solutions or understandings of them, that doesn't mean that we should take it by its face value, because the fact is that it is very important. No, it is crucial how we frame, and modeling is framing, and that's why I'm really. This is very important to me, because I can see it. I detect it in so many people, that the way they frame things, intentionally or not, it just doesn't make sense, or it just leads us to wrong conclusions. Or and it's not. This is much more common than we may believe, because what is not common is knowledge that is comprehensive, holistic, that goes through the multi layers without trying. And tries to be open at the same time, because, as I used to say, we need inputs even from the people that oppose us, are ideologically, politically or culturally opposed to us, because we might need it for a comprehensive understanding. Because unless we frame the problems accurately as humanly possible, that's why the importance, the relevance of the questions. The questions are always the most important thing. The right questions, that's what leads us to the right conclusions and the right solutions. Otherwise, we are already conditioning us, and by framing it in certain ways, by omitting certain variables that do not fit. So that's why that's why orthodox economics stinks so much. Because these people try to fit reality in their models instead of the other way around. How can it be? How can we even give them any credit? Why they give them credit? Because they serve the system. Because they are part of the problem. They are not part of the solution. So this is all of this is intricate, and we need to be smarter. And then, this is so. To end this conversation, today's conversation, what I'm going to say is do not dismiss the Anthropocene ideas, but do not try to understand the centrality, the relevance of the Capitalocene to understand Anthropocene. Otherwise, we miss the point. Okay, thanks for listening. I will be back soon.